In 1988, Dougal Dixon would release a book, The New Dinosaurs, centered around a speculative timeline where the meteor never hit that day 66 million years ago. The book has aged well in a few parts, but for the large majority it has aged horrendously. I'm not a fan of it myself. But in 2001 a new project on the early internet would appear. A more updated and expansive take on the idea, as well as being incredibly ambitious. And many people have worked on this project. The Speculative Dinosaur Project, nicknamed Spec. The project featured many incredible groups of speculative creatures such as sauropods like ceratopsians, predatory ornithopods, apex predatory terrestrial pterosaurs, termite-eating nosaurids and saber-toothed tyrannosaurs. The project is somewhat known for a very troubled production, including constant revisions, a lack of consistent art direction, and the most important issue was that it was scattered and largely free-form. It also had the issue of being centered around paleontology, and as many of you know, it's constantly on the move, so updates had to be constant to keep up with new discoveries. Spec has had many websites over the years, and for a few years they were updated constantly. So much has been lost, and production has pretty much slowed down completely. Many years ago there was a plan to even get a book published. Of course it never happened. The book was going to be written like an expedition from human travelers, kinda like Expedition. 66 million years ago a meteor slammed into Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, forming a temporary mountain range and sending tsunamis in every direction. And setting off a chain reaction, kicking chemicals into the air and blocking out the sun for thousands of years. It marked the end of the Mesozoic era and the end of non-avian dinosaurs. In the millions of years to follow, other creatures would come and go. Crocodilians, birds and other animals would rise to become megafauna. But in the end, the world fell into the hands of the mammals. But what if this was completely false? What if the meteor never hit? In the world of Spec, the continents are in their exact places and forms. It's a parallel Earth. On our Earth, the Paleogene marked the arrival of the dawn of the age of mammals. Nothing took place on the world of Spec. And the dinosaur dynasty did not die. But before that, let's go over the history of the project. I will talk about the world of Spec later on in the video. I'm using the information found on the current running website. The project started, as many did, on old internet forums. In 2000 a discussion on the Dinosaur mailing list about speculative dinosaurs, including one of Spec's original creators, Daniel Benson. Nothing came of this. On 31st of July 2001 a user, Christopher Srunka, asked users of the Dinosaur mailing list about their ideas on Greg Paul's Speculative Dinosaurs presented in the Scientific American Book of Dinosaurs. Greg Paul is a famous paleontologist and paleo artist. He has worked on many famous books such as Predatory Dinosaurs of the World. There was a huge amount of interaction and discussion on the post. Many people that would end up working on Spec were a part of this, such as Daniel Benson, David Marjanovic, Brian Chu, Stacey Burgess, Michael Habib, Tina O'Mala, and Morgan Churchill. This discussion continued on and on until the 9th of August. The discussion was moved to a Yahoo resource due to changed terms on the Dinosaur mailing list. The Speculative Dinosaur project had begun, and the first true descriptions for the creatures would be created. The first website was held on Geocities and the majority of it was written by Daniel Benson. Most of the illustrations for this first version of Spec were drawn by Tina O'Mala, Brett Booth, and Daniel Benson. It would become Spec 1, and the project would continue on the move. Later a new artist would be brought on. Brian Chu was the artist that would create some of the most famous images and creatures for the project. As science progressed, new revisions had to be made to keep up. David Marjanovic would take on a huge scientific revision of it, and it would become Spec 2. When Benson graduated, the college stopped running the website, and among the only ways to find the writings of Spec 2 nowadays is from the Wayback Machine or page copies that were made around the time. And after that Daniel would slowly distance from the project. David would become the new main editor of the project. And with more papers coming out, he would initiate more revisions. It would be held at a new site, called Spec 3. This version is also lost. Spec 3 was also the last concise and recorded version of the project. Spec 3 continued to be maintained until 2019, when Yahoo stopped maintaining it. Many new attempts to do full-scale updates on the project failed. Ideas for new creatures in the world of Spec would keep being made. But very few of these new ideas were able to be canonized. And then we end up with the latest version of the project. The current website aims to restore the information lost from the many versions of the project across the years. I hope someday, somehow a book gets made. But now let's talk about what hasn't been lost. The world of Spec in its current form. Because of the constant revisions, it's kinda hard to get a proper idea of the story of this alternate timeline. The current website is a work in progress and many pages aren't complete. I'm going off of what it has to say. North America's fauna has remained incredibly abundant through the Cenozoic. The non-avian dinosaurs of North America in the world of Spec had to deal with many major geographic changes that those of our Earth never faced. Such as the arrival of vast sprawling grasslands, large open terrain, and the rising of the Rocky Mountains. Dinosaurs would have to face major events such as the North and South American interchange and the many sweeping ice ages. Without humans present on Spec, many major landmarks remain, such as the Great Black Swamp. Overall, the plant life on Spec North America is fairly similar to that of our Earth. Many of the forests look quite similar. Many of the famous late Cretaceous dinosaurs have disappeared. Ceratopsids, troodontids, ornitomimids and pachycephalosaurids have gone extinct on the continent. The most common and diverse herbivores in the north of the continent are surprisingly therizinosaurs. They crossed over a land bridge that appeared across the ice ages. And the hunters of these herbivores are tyrannosaurs. With the large open terrain and flat land, many of these tyrannosaurs are fairly gracile. The last large bruiser tyrannosaurs went extinct 55 million years ago. Along with the many Deinonychosaurdrax live in the north. The colder climates in the north have created ideal habitats for these predators and prey. In the more southern climate of North America, many ecosystems allow for other species of dinosaur. The only living group of hadrosaurs are the new group Neohadrosaurs. They take many strange forms. Megahadrosaurines are a group of North American neohadrosaurs that includes mungos and stegosaurs. They are large bulky animals. Many neohadrosaurs are also found in South America. They serve as large and medium herbivores. The small herbivore niche is filled by animals from South America that crossed the Panama Land Bridge. Variosaurs are small basal ornithopods. The birds of Spec North America are mainly filled with ancient North American relics or South American migrants. Most mammals are rodent-like eutherians. Arthropods in the world of Spec are almost indistinguishable from those on our Earth. Spec Africa is home to many bizarre and unique animals. The dinosaurs of Spec Africa have also had to develop with new geologic changes. The connection between Eurasia and Africa has created a large land bridge. The formation of the Congo has also created a home for some of the most elusive Spec animals. The Ice Age also caused many regions of Earth to dry up, but in Africa this had less of a toll. The lower down in Spec Africa, the more native species there are. The very north of Africa is dominated by Eurasian migrants. Unlike Spec North America, Spec Africa is home to featherless hunters. Abelisaurs, those giant scaly and knob-burly beasts. The largest and most fearsome are the Priscators. Spec Africa is also home to many species of hadrosaur. Ungulapedia is a group of African hadrosaurs that have a wide variety of shapes and forms. Saurolops are the most common and diverse Ungulapedia in Africa. The most defining feature of Ungulapedia is the fact many of them have a complete hoof, unlike the hoof-like structure on Maastrichtian Edmontosaurs. This is a true horse-like hoof. Many of them also have distinct horns.
They mirror the diversity of the antelopes on our Earth. Sauropods are purely represented by titanosaurs in Specafrica is also home to the largest of all sauropods. Out on the prairie the giant humped grassbags can be found. The rainforest Jihugrongo, the largest of the neobrachis and sauropods. The grasslands and savanna of Specafrica are also home to many species of crocodilians such as the small diminutive aardkroc. At the very south of Specafrica a very bizarre species of nosaurid can be found. The kagru is one of my favorite animals from the project. It's an nosaurid with long protruding teeth that it uses to hack into termite mounds. Near the coast of Africa there's the island Madagascar. It has lost much of its diversity through the Cenozoic and the giant titanosaurs are gone. And the forests have nothing to stop them, but in the land of Madagascar the crocodilians have an astonishing amount of diversity. Instead of dinosaurs the small crocodilians such as Simosuchus that have been living on the island have diversified into giants. Giant armored ankylosaur-like crocodilians have emerged such as the hoplocrocs. And preying on them are the predatory galloping crocodilians. The largest of the hoplocrocs are the gargants. There are also smaller species of crocodilian such as the arboreal common jugator. There are few large to medium dinosaurs on the island. Most of them are very cryptic and unknown, though some nosaurids still linger. Madagascar is also home to many groups of lemur-like mammals. I wasn't able to find much information on Australia, but the concepts are very interesting. There are some concepts for the apex predators being giant terrestrial pterosaurs and some concepts having predatory ornithopods. Australia is also one of the last places on the planet to have ankylosaurs. Marsupials are also still fairly dominant and diverse. Like the drop bear. New Zealand is also very similar to that of our world. It's still very much a paradise for birds. Even further south there is the frozen continent of Antarctica. The Spec Earth has managed to evolve its own myriad of birds resembling penguins. They are much more diverse than our world's penguins. Many have bizarrely shaped beaks for different purposes. Much further north we go to Eurasia. The largest continent mass. A land with baking deserts, lush wet rain forests, freezing tundra and vast plains. India was a volcanic mess during the last few million years of the Maastrichtian. During the Eocene the landmass of India collided into Eurasia. Eurasian fauna is almost entirely dinosaurian. In the southern warm climate of Asia there are ceratopsids. Asia is the stronghold for the ceratopsids. These modern ceratopsids are called Cenoceratogians. There are giant sauropod-like ceratopsids called Brachceratopsinae or undors. Descended from leptoceratopsids. They're among my favorite animals in the entire project. Other types of more familiar ceratopsids are also found throughout Asia. The land bridge between Africa and Eurasia has caused changes in the animal life. In the southern areas of Eurasia tyrannosaurs have been replaced by the African priscators. The birds are mainly the African. During the Maastrichtian there were many parallels between North America and Asia. And that is partially the same in Spec's world. Like in the north of North America the main herbivores are the therizinosaurs. And the main predators are the tyrannosaurs and dromaeosaur-drax. Every spring in Eurasia marks the time of one of the largest mass migrations on the planet. Ammonites. A type of them called salmonites. It's a huge movement where millions of females move from freshwater ecosystems down to the coastal seas to disperse their eggs. This attracts many predators. Tyrannosaurus, dromaeosaurs and even some therizinosaurs. The tyrannosaurs of Specurasia are called pterosaurs. Like North America most of these modern tyrannosaurs are smaller and swifter. But not all of them are swift and small. In the freezing climate of the Arctic Circle, the most famous animals of the project can be found. Smiloteraninae. Massive predators with large elongated canine-like teeth. But with the declining of the ice caps, the saber-toothed tyrannosaurs are dying out. The oceans of Spec are fairly similar to ours. Even the fish are similar to our Earth. Many of the chondrichthyes such as sharks look very similar. Mosasaurs have continued to adapt and evolve and develop into a myriad of forms. The mosasaurs have evolved to become even more specialized for life in water. 66 million years ago in the Maastrichtian mosasaurs had bodies that highly resembled those of early whales and ichthyosaurs, but 66 million years later many mosasaurs resemble our Earth's derived ichthyosaurs and dolphins, evolving a thinner snout, rounder body and a full-on dorsal fin. Other lizards are still around, many evolving into very familiar forms. With pterosaurs I wasn't able to find anything if pterosaurs were still alive around in the current version of the project or not. This video was really fun to work on. The world of Spec had so many people working on it, so much has been lost. But it will always remain a beautiful work of art. Even now I have really scratched the surface. I recommend to research it more, and if I made any mistakes please correct me. Thanks so much for watching.